and Kazi and other ones, how in Bangladesh, this amazing territory with a lot of crafts and know-how. So therefore, history, it's prose that it delivers to us this know-how. And there is know-how, there is no know-how without knowledge. So lucky you being in Bangladesh, and you need to believe in your place as I believed in Morocco, and they went back as urgent as possible. So, okay, let me start. So, what I'm going to show you, they are not actually cliches. They are not photographs I went like a tourist and they did. No, these are projects that I was seriously involved in them. Be it in a project like Fez, who I spent almost like part of my young age on the ground working with craftsmen, as you will see, or the project I did the technical review with the Aga Khan, like Tabriz, Bazaar of Tabriz, and then of course the Avenue Bourguiba in the colonial city of Tunis, or the project I was involved as a consultant with a famous firm of Rasim Badran in Jordan, and we did actually a fantastic job for Dr. Sultan Qasimi, the ruler of Sharjah. He's a visionary man, and they will show you what history is explored and how it's explored. But first of all, I want just to demystify this word conservation. Okay, so urban transformation, as I said, there is urban transformation to upgrade the existence of the city in order to look for better quality of life, if I may use this quality of life. The urban transformation, it could be crazy, utopistic, futuristic, and you implement Sheikh Mohammed in Dubai. Okay? Urban renewal, you have part of the city historic and the other part is contemporary, forward looking, but there is actually kind of what disconnection. How to connect. Not to connect because the historical one is not valuable. No, because this discourse is over. Because the modernists ideologies, especially in Europe, they taught us we need to curse our past. In our culture, we don't curse our past. We don't have a problem with our past. That we leave it to them, you know? They have a whole bunch of issues. Renaissance, enlightenment, you know, revolutions and stuff. But it's good. I mean, it's different culture. I'm not here criticizing, but I think for our context, it's very important to be prudent with this question of cultural continuity. And they will handle it at the urban level. And then, of course, we have the urban renovation, miserable district in the city, obsolete, deteriorated, and you need to demolish and renovate. This is called urban renovation. And then urban rehab or rehabilitation. Urban rehabilitation, you have a historic area in the city, but the function is obsolete. And then at the level of the building, we say adaptive reuse. At the level of the district, historic, but we need to update its function. We call it urban what? Rehab. It's like rehab. What is rehab? You're restating the status of a person or a district or a building. And then of course we have this urban conservation. So I prefer to use urban conservation. Why? Because conservation or preservation is wider. Rehab is an adaptive reuse. Renewal, that means you are renewing the whole body, including structures. But when it comes to urban conservation, it's more encompassing as a term. So therefore, I start here. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to go back. Oh, okay, yes. What happened since Bangladesh is also a Muslim country, I think we are in trouble in Muslim countries. We are too much emotional about the past. It's the nature of our culture. Anything from the past, we sacralize it. I know there is a tradition, there is lots of things that comes from the sacred source that we all respect because we're Muslims, but that also creates that we have confusion between the tangible and intangible values. The intangible values, they are unchanging. And the tangible values, they should change. And if they don't change, there is a problem. Because human nature is change. So therefore, this term change is very important. And how conservationists in the Muslim world, they were embracing European schools of conservation, and that what added, the major problem to our culture. Conservation of Europe, if you read François Chouet and other literature, of course, about conservation and how it started in Europe, it started because of feudalism, and the monuments, they were the monuments of the king, and the feudal wealth, and the wealth of the church. And the people, they were left alone. This is why I like Joseph Reckwood when you asked him once, do you believe in style? He said, there is no style. Victorian style of a king. But there is no style of people. So therefore, this disparity between the heritage of the people and the heritage of the feudals made a clash in Europe. And this is why they invented conservation, to save the monument from the people. You see that? So the notion of monument as an isolated sacred building that portrays the image of the power of religion or the church, it was what discounted from the realm of the public who this stuff don't belong to them. So claiming it back. So this not happened in Muslim societies, but you can have Medina. Medina belongs to everyone. And by the way, Fez, when it was listed as World Heritage City, was the first city to be on the list of UNESCO in 1981. Before Fez, they were listing only monuments and fragments in the European way, because they don't have the notion of what integrated Medina. Like of Fez, 170,000 people living within a boundary of 11 kilometers of historic walls, and with 13,000 historic buildings, no single car can enter that Medina. So that for UNESCO was heaven. I mean, if you look to a Roman site, red ribbon, don't touch, don't use flashes, is dead. So the only historic site that survives with its people, there are these Medinas. This is why Ikram, when actually Ikram, in 1993, they invented a new term thanks to our colleagues from Bangladesh, from India, from Morocco. They said, conservation means different for us. You are dealing with fixing stone. We need to fix people living in living heritage, and hence the living heritage is very important. And then hence again, we go to the concept of conservation, not for the static, but conservation of the living. And how to, as I said tomorrow, to conserve the container while promoting the quality of life of the one using the content, which is the user. And they have here a very beautiful quote from Stefano Bianca. You know Stefano Bianca. He worked for the Aga Khan, and I like this person. He's a good friend and colleague, because Stefano Bianca was among the very few people who promoted the project of Fez with UNESCO. I mean, one before him was Titus Burkhardt. And Titus Burkhardt, Swiss architect, came to Fez, fell in love with Fez, and is not a Moroccan who defended the case of the Medina of Fez. It was a Swiss French architect, Titus Burkhardt, who is the son of Jacob Burkhardt, one of the scholars in Europe about revolutionizing the way they looked at the Renaissance. So these guys, they believed in the Oriental wisdom, and from his father, he was actually traveling for that, and then he took the case of Fez as a really a cause. So what Stefano Bianca is saying, what is the rationale for a rather sterile conservation, which would freeze still functioning buildings, like in Bangladesh and Morocco? An urban district like museums, artifacts in an arbitrary stage of their evolution. We come, it is a living site, we cut or we extract one building, we make it special, hence the monument, hence sketches, artists, and we make it what? A star, like nowadays, showbiz. You take an ordinary person and you make that person a star, all right? So that was the problem. And then we left everyone behind. Forget about the function of that building and what that's building for, what its raison d'etre, what the context, etc. I mean, there was no discussion. Of course, Janet Abu Lagoud, a very famous scholar in the United States, and of course he's a Middle East studies expert. So what she said, no question, we are not after the preservation of a mosque. We're not after the preservation of a mosque. Not after the here or there. We are not after an isolated construction of new buildings with this thin veneer of Islamic cliché. And then again, I will discuss with you. I have a long thinking and reading about this topic of Islamic architecture. We come to that. It's problematic, but it's not the subject. We are certainly not after Disneyland reconstruction. That's what happened in Dubai, in Bastikia. If you visited Bastikia, I went to Bastikia first. I said to my colleague Rashad Bukhash at the time, he was in charge. I said, Rashad, this is a Disneyland. He didn't like it. He hated it. I said, excuse me, you cannot take a historic district. You overstate it because you are using the stone of Jordan, in order to reconstruct it in Dubai. And then when it's standing like something fictional, you make it an art gallery. Because someone coming from Fez like me, how can I believe that however, doesn't mean please the Gulf they don't have heritage. They destroyed it. I prove it to you with Sokwaqif. I have it here with the Aga Khan Award. I prove it to you. So therefore, just to summarize, last part, our task is too serious to be fulfilled by such simple-minded definitions of preservation, restoration. We need to seek a deeper meaning of what we're looking for, and hence this is the subject of my presentation. The second thing is we need a shift of paradigm. With due respect to historic preservation programs, when I was in London or I was at UPenn, I have colleagues who I have due respect for them. However, I was in clash. I said, historic preservation is a chemistry lab fixing stones. And I remember Mateo, a colleague who is sincere colleague and he really masters what he's doing. But he said, Frank, please, I want to be in the program. I came with this conservation expertise with craftsmen, and you're so busy in the lab fixing a stone, and you don't question the stone in the Ruskinian way that is bearing the sweat of the worker that chiseled that stone. For me, the sweat of that worker is better than that stonish whatever thing you're doing. And at the end, they were convinced. I want you to listen to what I'm saying now. They hired someone from Getty Institute to talk about the other part, which is community, the living part. All right? And now he's becoming the head of the program. You see, silent change. But what I'm including now into conservation, and by the way, sustainability, I know it's disturbing. It's becoming a disturbing term. I'm alarming you. However, there is a certain prophecy in that term. I'm using it in an empirical way. I'm not using it in a new-fashioned way. I believe in empirical sustainability, like the Bengal civilization, how they dealt with water, how they survived in extreme climates. That for me, empirical sustainability. All right? So therefore, conservation should go in tandem with sustainability and what push for the portfolio of development. In the 70s, I remember we were architects, very few architects working on conservation, and we had that big fight with archaeologists. Because whatever you go, you find that at certain times, 60s, 70s, the realm of conservation was really governed by archaeologists. They don't believe in the future. They were taught like that. I don't blame them as persons, but they were taught, and by the way, the misery, all of them, they were taught Eurocentric, Romanistic, classical archaeology. Like in Egypt, everyone is talking about the pyramids, Egyptology. No one is talking about the Fatimids and the Medina of Cairo. This is why it's miserable. Why? Because so busy with pharaonic, because of tourism industry, because of European exoticism, and because of the link between the pyramids and Europe, but they are skipping a whole era. You see, conservation is highly political. Hence, development, regardless of what cliche image we give that city or that town or that fragment or that monument, but let's say this is part of our heritage, even sometimes controversial heritage, like the colonial one, but we embrace it because we're looking forward. And this is what I'll be transmitting to you today. So therefore, to preserve the active social and cultural mode of a historic urban city entails finding a sound, adaptive and use urban policy which stimulates its development attractions whilst being prudent on saving its authenticity. Please, I'm not advocating for not archaeologists to be upset with me, and this is why we gain the ground, architects gain the ground with archaeologists. Now, with my colleagues in Morocco, they are all of them saying, conservation, sustainable development. Hello, remember when I did that intervention in Fez and you put, our architects are destroying the town? We're talking the same language. Architects, they are looking to what a form can entail as a message to carry it on in a new form. You are believing in a static form to be preserved as a cultural symbol. It's good, you should continue with that. But please don't freeze my heritage. I will prove to you that through Fez, craftsmen, one day we've done a workshop for social assessment with the World Bank, and then one of the craftsmen said, you are talking about heritage, and heritage is me. You don't talk about me. He is heritage, he's a piece of heritage. So therefore, to cut my story short, so yes, I like this my sentence. Development in conservation context means reactivating the dormant memory. Some cultures, they don't want to reactivate that dormant memory. It's maybe sometimes bloody one, and you know what I'm talking about. So, but there is a dormant and environmental synergies, respect of culture, respect of climate change, energy. But excuse me, we have is sustainability. With minimum resources, we survived in harsh territories, and because of those harsh territories and lack of resources, this is why we have one of the most advanced technologies, in irrigation systems, in cooling houses. You see, doesn't mean you are under harsh conditions. That means that is a source, a trigger for innovation. So, sustainability and conservation, no one talks about this literature, by the way, because this is my own, kind of embedded concern. When I was in academic sittings, they don't believe in what I'm saying. But thanks God, after 10 years now, you go to them now, everyone is talking about that. Why? Because I had that messages from the school of Fez. I was breathing the living heritage of the Medina of Fez as a school. I did not follow John Ruskin or Viollet-le-Duc and then all this fragmentation, the way we look at the monuments. Excuse me, it's your problem, but I have my problem, all right? So therefore, I have a saying in French, we say, le terrain suggère le terrain, the terrain or the field work suggests its own objectives and methodology. If you bring a methodology or an equation, it's not yours. And at the end, you're fake. So therefore, you need to forge your own. So therefore, this question of the extension of the definition of monument started since 1964 to embrace the rural and urban environment. Forget about rural heritage. No one talks about it. You know why? It's clear. It's discrimination. Rural means poor, miserable, and because of the term rural, we discriminated the largest communities in our planet. So therefore, in the Venice Charter, the first chapter that actually combined between the monument and its environment. Please don't isolate the monument as a sacrosanct, but make it part of its context. Number two, in 1965, the United States initiated the idea of combining cultural conservation with nature conservation. It's clear because United States, even modernism in the United States is different from modernism of Europe. Modernism of Europe is ideologist, is against the past, is against history. Modernism in America is more a modernism of existentialism, like Frank Lloyd Wright, believing in the genius. So there is Native American culture of embracing nature. So nature in America is very sacred. And hence, they link between culture and nature because the natural landscape is a capital in the United States. So therefore, with that, the discourse changed from the European kind of conservation. And hence, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, developed similar proposals in 1968, the year of my birth, and they were presented in 1972 to the United Nations Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm. The General Conference of UNESCO adopted the Convention of Protection of the World Cultural and Natural Heritage, and please bear with me. Whenever we say the Convention of 1972, no one adds the word nature. They always say, oh, the 1972 Convention about heritage, static, but no one reads the articles about nature. And then linking this conservation to sustainability, that is actually a very early concern worldwide. But no one knew about its, until we got this danger of climate change, etc. So the Agenda 21, 1992, presented the first formal recognition of sustainability as perpetuating human resources in a globalizing and consuming world, and hence the shift of the mindset in UNESCO. I've been working as consultant or through the project of FAS. I knew UNESCO since I had 19 years old, okay? And they know how much they changed their minds about the word conservation. Now they are all talking about sustainability, climate change. Well, hello. I mean, heritage is a very good school to teach you what is sustainability. You prefer to make it static and cliches. And you boosted tourism because of the World Heritage List. And nations are competing how much monuments listed. Why? For attraction, and some sites under threat to be erased, and they have the title of World Heritage List, and this is a problem. I don't want to get too into that. So I'll be focusing, of course, on Middle East because I'm from the region, and please forgive me for the term Middle East. I know it's an invention, all right? It's a new invention just in academia. There is no Middle East or Small East, Big East, Far East. This is just geopolitical, whatever things, you know. I believe there is no boundaries between Far Asia to Morocco. I can prove to you that living heritage as a human know-how was everywhere. I can prove to you Chinese influence in traditional houses in Morocco. Even our kaftan is a kimono that came via you to the Levant, traveled through the Mediterranean. Even Europe was actually influenced by the kimono, and especially what the academics they wear now. You know, that coat. You have a jacket with a tie, suddenly you take it off, and you put that cloak, and you put the turban, and you say, oh, I'm from Oxford. It's originally Oriental. It's Oriental because scholars in the Far East or Near East, name them whatever, they have that respect for scholarship, and they put like special kaftan for ladies, but clothes for them. So therefore, what I'm trying to say here, Middle East, I mean, till Iran, Turkey, Levant, North Africa, including Egypt, Sudan. It's just an area of study. It's not political statement. It's just an area of study where I've done a lot of research. So Samir Abdullah was a Harvard guy who was actually commissioned by the previous Director General of World Bank, James Wolfenson, and there's a long story with James Wolfenson and the World Bank. He was very interested into Medinas, and he wanted to help with the conservation. He was a culturalist man. So therefore, when I brought these economists of the World Bank, no one believes in culture, because they were not trained to respect your culture. They are dealing with infrastructure, poverty, that's it. I'm sorry, it's a French word. Conservation today has to rely on the combined development of cultural, social, and economic opportunities and processes. All urban areas must not be treated as foreign bodies or as large-scale museums, but as living and integral part of the whole city, including urban transformation. What urban transformation? Some people, this is actually my advice to young generation of architects. Please don't make that ego too much that you discard yourself from your roots and you think you standing alone, you create the future. Whoever taught architects to be like that, I think he's done a big mistake for humanity. It's a problem. Out of a sketch, you want to create something never seen. And then you add the stupid thing of signature. Nonsense. Because we can't. We can't. Even if we try, we can't. We can't. Because you're part of the fabric. All right? So therefore, just to strategies, I will not talk much about that. I will talk about the first case study. I started now with case study. I made some statements. I need to prove them. All right? So the first one, look at this. This is fast. 808. Now we found it. Maybe Idris the second. And look at this honeycomb structure. And just for information, extremely compact, but extremely comfortable. All right? Everyone has his own courtyard, and everyone has his little piece of paradise. But they are next to each other. Why? Not because of that Hurma, privacy, Orientalist, there is some harem hiding. This, and the problem, even our scholars, they are contaminated with the Orientalists, and they are fictioning about the harem more than the Orientalists. Catastrophe. This is simply climate. We need to be one to each other because of the shape. We need to create shape. We need to have twisty alleys to have more breeze. Make it. The whole fabric is working as air conditioning. Yeah? Second, security. When there is war and attacks, we need to be next to each other and not leave vacant lands for attackers to come. Number 4, thermal comfort. Number 3, a lot of clusters making family the sacred unit. And the sacred units of families, they connect to each other, they create neighbors with a cohesion center. And this clustering honeycomb, they are now dreaming about them in Europe now. They are creating courtyards, shared spaces, mixed use. But that all was in the Medina. They were cursing this, like John Galotti, a French guy. He said, I don't know why these Muslims, they use these introvert houses like their graveyard. He didn't get it. But Le Corbusier, when he was sketching the Casbah of Algiers, and they have those sketches, they are not published. I got them from the library, beautiful library of UPenn. I will show you, I have it in my laptop here. He said, look at Europeans, they live like rats in holes, that means apartments. And look at these savages, Arabs, they live in garden hanged roofs, like paradise. This is Le Corbusier. This is where he got his idea of hanged gardens. And there is now level and stuff. Anyway, this is another story. So therefore, how can you deal with this? You will deal with this Medina, 170,000 people living inside. All the historic buildings, they are still intact, in a very good condition. Some they are collapsing. So you cannot deal with it like conservationist, Eurocentric conservation. It's impossible. And this is why, whatever they say, I think the ground on conservation moved toward the east, because where the genius is still alive, and it's not a static monument frozen for photographers. So therefore, I will move. The first master plan that was used for a historic city was in Fez. Yes, indeed. Because what happened, even maybe in Bangladesh, you don't see well the country, all old sites with people, they were colored with one color, and they were naming it conservation zone, and then they go to the modern, and they do the master planning, avenues, boulevards, stuff, colonial things. 170,000 people, they are just tainted with one color. You are conservation. And you know what it means, conservation. Condemn. And the Medina became what? Automatically Islam. So it was actually an extension of the colonial philosophy of conservation. Because when General Lyoté came and the French came to Morocco, they were not interested in you and me. They were interested to a couple of monuments to sell them as a package for the French tourists to come. And this is why you have Halima with a jar in a poster, Harim somewhere. And there is distorted image about a living city that was in its apogee in terms of knowledge, thanks to the Qarawiyyin University, even before any university in Europe. Valencia, before Cathedral of Chartres. And of course, we know that thanks to the Crusades that Europeans, they've seen the Moorish model of universities and they transposed them to Europe. This is clear. I mean, they cannot deny this. So now, this master plan, look at this, since almost like 1980, all right? In between 1975 and 1980. Too early to consider a historic city as the main driver for the future urban planning, and hence how to connect between the past and the future and decide about the destiny of the city not to be detached from its memory. And of course, when you come here, there are some orientations: maintain the centrality of the Medina, reduce the high population density, like what you have here, and of course, conserve the Medina's surrounding green archaeological landscape, equip the Medinas with public facilities, upgrade and connect the circulation, empower the economic function, transfer, polluting, mechanize or the machine stuff, etc. So, I will not talk about institutional agencies and stuff because I don't want to waste your time. I will just give you some examples of that model. Look what our craftsmen can do. It's exactly like, it's exactly what the Bengal, master builders like you have here. Look how monuments. This is before, this is after. This is the caravanserai of Najeri, 17th century. I worked on surveying. This was as a student in my 5th year. By the way, I slept in that building as a student while it was in that condition. And I learned so much from the anatomy. Look how this is actually, this part is getting down because there is a river and this whole part was actually almost collapsing. Serious damage. And this is what happened after restoration. For your information, 0% cement. Lime, baked bricks, sun-dried bricks, cedar wood, tiles, everything handmade. Nothing here foreign. All right? Yeah, okay, so I will, maybe I'm long. This is the first master plan. When you say like, urban conservation, I will now come to the definition. I remember we had difficulty with the governmental agencies like the Ministry of Planning. They have something called Plan d'Aménagement, Master Plan for Contemporary City. And when we said Master Plan for Historic City, they said, we don't have it legally. I said, okay, but it's a city. No, we cannot deal with it now. All right, so what we've done, for 3 years as a team, like 3 or 4, we pushed the agenda to have a master plan for a historic city, and we convinced the system. all right, from the top. And hence, this is the first master rehabilitation plan. And after that, Ikram and other ones, they all started applying, master plan for, conservation, sometimes rehabilitation. Anyway, master plan, what is a master plan? Master plan, of course, master plan cannot be like the new city. The new city, the master plan is too deep, flat. Just a couple of orientations where the city will go, functions, zoning, administrative, facilities, amenity stuff. Anyway, the Athens Charter stuff. But here is very delicate and very intricate. You need to have very sound knowledge of that encyclopedia, because a city that lasted 9 centuries, 10 centuries, it has layers. So therefore, archaeologists, sociologists, psychologists, they were like very, very wide multidisciplinary team dismantling the Medina. Though in the myth of Orientalists is something that cannot be dismantled. It's too much disorder. But I have an article, if you're interested to read it, it's especially for architects and planners, called Order in Randomness, New Paradigm of Planning. And by the way, I got an award for that. And of course, destroying the myth of the modern planning from an ancestral model. And they had 2 reviewers, of course, Orientalists. They really gave me a hard time, because how can you're destroying the whole thing from the model of the Medina that was cursed as a maze? Because I spoke about this mantle construct. You come with your military orthogonal checkerboard to the Medina, and you want that Medina to be like with the boulevards like Haussmann. Of course it's primitive from your mantle construct, but when you live in it, now Marrakesh is full with these French retired. They all owning houses in the Marrakesh, and they are enjoying the sun in the courtyard, and they are describing the palaces in such a wonderful way. Look at this new generation, but the generation of 19th century who had a negative connotation, whatever you do. So let me cut the story short. So this is actually the first master plan. What was about? Was about the historic evolution of the city, what is memorable, what is not. Even one zone may be more authentic, historic, but may have some modern buildings. In an area where 9th century to 10th century doesn't mean just 9th and 10th century, the city was under evolution. You may have 19th century intervention in 9th to 10th century intervention. So there were a lot of typological studies about, how to, classify the whole memory of the Medina. And when you build the ground and you understand the encyclopedia, then a couple of actions to upgrade it. How to keep its physical value, but how to push its living memory, and that's the challenge. And by the way, if you succeed in pushing, and this is why I like Hassan's remark, it was very pertinent. Why? Because he said, when we go too fast, we feel like the time is frozen. It is not frozen. I think there is a thread of continuity, that we don't have issue with the physical vehicle is old or new. If it's reliable, still functional, what's the problem? We need to use it. I cannot stop history for the sake of conservation or a conservationist. You see that very important. This is why if some of you come to France, I will prove it to you. I take you to the heart of the Medina. There is a house, dates back to 10th century, and its original family still live in it. 10th century, right? And it is. Original family still live there. That's actually quite amazing, to challenge all the abrupt modern changes, tools, gadgets, consumerism, and believe in your place. I think you may tell me, oh no, but they need to change. But why? What for? I mean, if they have Wi-Fi or have Wi-Fi, like once I was with a delegation from the United States, very top VIP, and the guy stood and said, Hassan, how can they do the cables here for electricity? And they were very prestigious with the ambassador. Said, sir, if they were able to put the sewer in every single house, and every single house with a bathroom in 11th century, they cannot put a stupid cable in the wall. And in smartness, I will prove to you that there was smart systems. Every single house is connected to the potable water, and they don't get mixed, because the potable, there is actually a pottery canal protected with sand within a very strong wooden box, and this wooden box goes through all the potable water jar, canals, for not to get contaminated by the sewer. It's a whole sophisticated world. How they would exploring the winter rainy water, capturing it, pushing it to the sewer to cleanse the town. One of the rivers reached the city, divided to 4, and is serving all the district of the Medina. This hydraulic technology, and of course with the sun hydraulic clock, which is actually 13th century, there is hydraulic clock, yes, that was actually based on integral time, not like now 24 hours for knowing the time of prayers. I mean, they were with cosmology, etc. I don't want to be long here. Go quickly. So this is some of the GIS. I'm not talking about first like paradise. We have a lot of problems. Poor people, living in very dilapidated conditions. What to do with them? So therefore, the challenge. When I was a student, I was sketching that beautiful marble pillar, and next to me there was someone begging. I said, I was a student of architecture. I said, I care about that marble thing, or I care about this guy? See, this is the problem. Schools of architecture, they teach you the capital Ionic Doric stuff, but they never tell you about the Ionic of this guy. Yeah? Yeah? What to do? So this is the problem. So therefore, when you get to, of course, pushing craftsmanship, is why an Institute of Arts and Crafts was actually elaborated, and it seeds unbelievable entrepreneurs now that work with the craftsmen. Of course, the other thing, the big mistake of big master planning of 1 to 2000, I think I was saying the team, we pushed the portfolio to get also district orientations. I told you yesterday the scale of 1 to 500. I learned that from the Medina. We have strategic orientations, but we got to every single neighborhood to set up kind of a real master plan. And you could see here the potable water, and then you could see the sewer water in black, and you could see the other drainage systems, every single house. And look, this is 13th century sewer system. Before restoration, after restoration. 13th century. City has its sewer. And ask this about other sophisticated cities now, if they had a sewer in the past. And you know why they developed their historic cities. Anyway, because if you read, of course, Victor Hugo, what he said from Notre Dame Tower, because he was a writer, he said, look at this destitute, poor, miserable Paris. All right? Fez was not that. Okay? Sana'a was not that, even though it's totally damaged. Anyway, so, of course, a lot of studies, greenery, very important. I think what is in our culture, in cultural harsh climates, with the lack of water, I think sacredness of the green. Why is the green is very sacred? Why all these Andalusian, Moorish gardens? Because they did not have like you here, you're living in the middle, with like green, everything. But then, when you look at green, it's source of life. So therefore, of course, this is a GIS, and the first GIS, 1993, was developed with Bentley, Oracle, and MicroStation. Of course, a lot of work was done on the landscape of the Medina, because the breathing heart was the surrounding, was protected. Now buildings, the environments. This is the place where now we work with sacred music. Okay, this is the case of Fez. I'll be a little bit long, but it's very important for the students. Okay, if you don't mind. So now I will move to Doha, and I will prove to you that the Gulf countries, there is a stereotype, they have nothing, just the desert and mountains, which is absolutely wrong. I had that stereotype, exactly like you. When I had the project with the Aga Khan Award, I remember Farouk contacted me and said, you want you to be the technical reviewer for Soq Waqif. The first thing came to my mind, Soq Waqif. it's a heritage place, Doha. He said, okay, I will sink it. No, okay, I will not win. But I went to Souq Waqif, and then I discovered the whole urban memory. And thanks to Muhammad Ali, who was an artist and designer, I got access to a lot of information. Look, in 1947, this was a real commercial hub, and that was strategic link with Iran, Iranian merchants. And of course, because of oil economy and oil discovery, he spoiled the heritage. And then Amir of Qatar at that time, he realized that the new generation will be without memory. Look, they have everything, tower. So, but there is something in the stomach, or something, things are missing. We've done something wrong, because like now, if you go to the US, I like colleagues there. Here we look at modernism like something now we aspire to. People, they are fed up with modernism. They want to go back to the forest now in the US. All right? They want to just fresh air in the middle of nowhere. You want to hear that thing, the whole night since 4 a.m. I'm hearing that only. So therefore, this is how it was. And what is Waqif? Souq Waqif, unbelievable. So before to launch in Souq Waqif, I just want to say something. So Fez is urban conservation of a living Medina that never died, and the problem how to sustain it living part within a historic physical environment. Souq Waqif, or the Medina of Doha, a Medina that was denied by its people because they saw new potential, okay? And then they emptied it, and they regretted destroying it. And what they call this tendency in urban conservation, I call it reconstruction of memory. Yeah? So therefore, I was keen, because I wanted to defend the project with the Aga Khan Award. I have these brilliant jury members, and you need to make an argument. First, I wanted to destroy this project. But when I met this gentleman, I will show you his picture, he convinced me. Hassan, this is not conservation like Fez. This is something sacred for the future generations. In whatever way we reconstruct, but at least we create continuity of intangible thing within a site that may not be very authentic. He really passed to me that message. And then I went with him. I said, look, there were like markets, there were like crafts, lots. Look at this. I mean, this is Doha, okay? There was a life. We cannot just say, oh, there is a tower now, with all this tower stuff. They will end their story because they cannot be sustainable. So therefore, to cut the story short, because they abandoned their heritage, look what happened here, okay? Very clandestine interventions, lots of buildings they were erased, lots of workers took over the place, etc. This is Muhammad Ali. He's a brilliant guy, really brilliant. He has his master's in arts, I think maybe design. And guess what? The Amir hired a German firm, and they brought him a proposal. When he saw the proposal, he said, "What this? I told you to do something to reconstruct the memory, and you're creating something like fake." Once the Amir was driving his whatever, he saw that beautiful house with the Qatari style. Yes, who is the owner of this guy? Oh, the owner is the artist. By the way, this story was told to me by Muhammad. So it said, I want this guy to come to my office. He went to the Amirs. Obviously say, I want you to go to Souq Waqif and do the same what you've done in your house. And luckily, Muhammad Ali, what was his work as an artist? Reconstructing the memory of Qatar or Doha for little textbooks for young students in schools to remember what their grandfathers they were like. And they will show you some of his sketches. Yeah? Imagine you are in Bangladesh, you have this history, it's next to you, you don't care about it. But these guys, they lost it. And then they're doing textbooks with these drawings, showing to their young generation, this is how your father was living, was doing that. And he started what? This is actually very also authentic. You have an artist who traveled all over the shores of Iran, thinking about typologies of architecture, and he was not caring about the physical vehicle of architecture. He was caring more about the human part and what makes that anchor with the locality. And then he got to draw. You see, draw. This is actually Souk Waqif here, and they will tell you what the meaning of Souk Waqif. Souk means market, yes. Waqif means standing. Why? Because it was a wetland, and the Iranian merchants, they would bring in their merchandises, and because the land was wet, they cannot put the merchandise, so they would hold in it while standing on this wetland for selling their goods, and they go back to the boats and leave. And this is why it's called Souk Waqif. That means you sell your goods while you're standing. Waqif, this is what it means. So therefore, this became, I don't want to get you back. This is now how it is. I mean, regardless of pseudo kind of traditional, I fully agree with you. This is not restoration, all right? I don't say it as restoration, but it is a reconstructed memory. And guess what? The only open air in Doha where you can walk while looking at the sky is Souk Waqif. And you have all these Emiratis coming, just amazing. And that actually, I'm taking this photo from the room of my hotel. It was a fantastic hotel. They took this historic building, they did adaptive reuse, and as an architect, maybe you worked on conservation, I was like doubting. I spent the night, I said, oh, the guy, what? He created an experience. Why not? It's worth it. But we should not consider it as conservation, restoration stuff, but something, an endeavor to reconstruct a memory. Okay? And within it, intangible heritage. Cuisine, arts, stuff. This is what I've done in the technical report for the Aga Khan, but I would like to read just this, that I wrote for the report. Souk Waqif is of great cultural importance in the Gulf region. Its rehabilitation has given rise to a historical site reflecting the cultural intermingling and this is actually Persian, Arabic, African, and Asian artistic and architectural influences. The current ethnicity of the traders is very representative of its dynamic past. Souk Waqif also represents a set of Islamic characteristics. It's not only human, but also physical, etc. So the impact of local environment, the originality of the project, etc. The most appreciated aspect of the project, I can name it. Promote the image of Doha, national, regional. It's not like the towers. At least you have something that is very Doha. And then of course, traditional dynamic souk, highly developed cultural experience, improvement of environmental aspects because they keep the climatic solutions, less air conditioning. You can sit and in a coffee shop within the harsh climate. Quality of public spaces, it is very, very good public space. Architecture quality around existing sites. All right, quick. The third category.
Did that one get the award?
No. By the way, I defended the concept. I did not say to the jury, this is a restoration. But one of the modernistic architects, of course, he want to continue doing his towers. He cannot believe in this. It's another story. But I got to a real debate with that guy. Real debate. All right? Of course, if this gets an award, be careful. It's a trend. It's a trend. This is why the Aga Khan Award is very delicate in choosing project. And this is why the jury members are very sharp. Because if you choose a project, that means you are giving a signal. So, and very diverse interest stuff and stuff. But we made my point. Yeah, it was shortlisted, but did not get the award. It's another story. I cannot mention stuff in the public. So, but this one got the award. I defended it. Tabriz Baba. And you see, quickly I will tell you why. This is actually shows you that the notion of the mall Everyone is talking the mall like a European thing. The mall is Persian, period, or Eastern. You know, in Morocco we call it Caesarea. In Iran they call it bazaar. And imagine this in Safavid period, 16th, 17th century. You have the Silk Road, you know, you have the Silk Road crossing, and you have a major hub of commerce. So I'm not talking about the bazaar like a stupid building. I'm talking about commercial hub, regional, connecting east with west. And this is why this bazaar is 10,000 shops. 10,000 shops. The richest point where architecture extrapolates to be regional. All right? So, this is what I'm talking about. The evolution, look, it's taken a whole part of the city, yes? And of course, the evolution of Tabriz over 3 dynasties, Seljuk, Safavid, and Qajar, and shows you even the travelers' sketches. This is a sketch of Tabriz. Of course, this is by Chardin, a traveler. And this is a historic map that was done miniature by Netrakshi. To see, miniature. So why would this bazaar was in the imagination, even of the West? Before that, they didn't have malls. This is a mall. And by the way, I will show you vaulted, covered streets with an amazing dexterous work of bricks, as you say. They are playing music with bricks. I will prove it to you. All right? So this is also a very good example. Though in Iran, of course, there is this, rigid kind of system like anywhere. But what is actually innovative about this project, the bazaarists, the shopkeepers, the owners, they took this project with their hands. So it's a project generated with the shop owners. It's not a state project. And they got to convince different parts, please, this bazaar is our memory, our history, and by the way, just for information, it's still a vibrant market. You have no idea how much I rag there. I wanted to buy that small thing rag, but still, very well done. He said, how much? He said, in Morocco, like maybe $300. He said, sir, it's $3,500. Are you killing me? This is Tabriz. All right? So, the capital of wealth, not only rights, I will show you that. So this is why they work together. So this is a community-built project. Their aspirations are they want to have that market still living as an influential center, not just in Persia, all over the region. And this is what they succeeded to do. A lot of surveys, shops and stuff. The bazaar after, and they will show you just conditions. And of course, you know that Persia has its own craftsmen as well. So before and after, look at the conditions, how it was. Look how the bazaar became. And this is why they took these things with their hands. After, did you see the work of bricks? I've never seen, I was thinking Fez is the center of the planet before. So when I visited Kashan in central Iran and you see some palaces, I said, forget about Fez. Wow, it's just amazing. So, and of course, full rehab, restoration, while people still working, and that's the challenge. And the whole project germinated from the bottom up and created this beautiful ecosystem, craftsmen, hundreds of workers, owners of shops themselves, hiring people to work. And then, of course, making this, plazas and the other kind of landscape within them to make them less dirty. Because in any place, if you abandon a place, automatically it will get really messy. So they create this sense of maintenance and sense of what neighborhoods. Just for information, I think around 60,000 square meters pedestrianized streets. Get out of cars. Make pedestrian things, and it become owned back by the people. And this is one of the craftsmen. I interviewed them during the process. I really enjoyed. This is a bank. There is no issue. They just put this stupid waiting chairs, but it's a bank. What the problem? Rags people still, maintaining these rags, and all kinds of shops. And this is what history means in the Muslim world. There is no problem with the past. Why are we making it a problem? People, they're living their life, all right? So I don't want to get to the impact, final appraisal that we write for the Aga Khan Award, for the jury. The rehabilitation of the Bazaar of Tabriz is pushing forward the conservation realm to bridge the current discourse of sustainability. However, sustainability engines that keep the Bazaar running for centuries, what I term empirical, is what conservation needs in order to deal with living heritage in the Islamic world. Despite the complexity of the project and critique of some aspects of restoration, this dimension of sustaining urban environment is currently highly appreciated by different communities in a time of mere urbanism and consumerism. Okay? But do you want me to stop? Sure? Okay. The third typology of urban conservation, Sheikh, the most educated Sheikh in the Gulf, and I was lucky to work for this person because he was the president of the university where I was, University of Sharjah, Dr. Sultan Qasimi, a brilliant guy. I say it with my eyes open because he was very wise. What's happening next door in Dubai, he wanted Sharjah to be more authentic. So he's calling different people. How can Sharjah can still a breathing, hub of local culture, Arabic or Islamic or that, but without any aspect of extreme, nothing. He's a very enlightened man. So he got different consultants. I was part with Rasim, who was not Diwan. It was in 2000, it was, when we started this project, it was 2012, 2011. And I will just show you the crazy Dubai. This is the, what is this? Don't tell me you know this project. This is the park. See this big development. No, this is another one. And by the way, this is the old town of Sharjah. And there is a boundary. And Sheikh Sultan, he's very furious about this contamination of the ocean. These guys, they live with the oceans, you don't know. By the way, Emiratis, Qatari, they have a culture of ocean. They are pearl hunters, and they're not really into the sea culture. So therefore, he wanted this hub to be cultural to face this monster. And his idea is brilliant, but the execution, I don't know if it's actually feasible. Because even in Sharjah, the real estaters, they are so crazy. They are these lagoons, and you see how many towers they started to do. Yeah, this is the pond. Did you see the pond here? Mm-hmm. And this is how crazy development. He wanted to stop that, and he stopped that. And then he said, okay, how can I remodel the city with a cultural program? Not cultural program like series of folklore, festival. This is, this is just veneer. But he wanted really to explore urbanism via the spectrum of culture. And of course, after came the International Guide for Culture and Urbanism of UNESCO. It was years after that I contributed to it. But this guy was very visionary. I look at this part, and this what remained. Of course, a lot of damage. This is the old Sharjah, Medina. Of course, they destroyed a lot of places and stuff. Now you have kind of remains, and how can we build the site? And the problem is how to extrapolate. Not extrapolate, but okay, you have buildings and stuff, that doesn't mean boulevards and avenues will create culture. And how we define culture is very hard. Is it cinema and theater? Or culture is artisans and more kind of way of living of people? I will use the definition of high culture and low culture. The high culture is the elite. They want to go to a restaurant, theater. This is high culture, music, orchestra. The low culture is the normal people lives. It's a cultural aspect. But we cannot be caught by the high culture. Go to the city, set a couple of theaters and say you have culture. No, you don't have culture. Culture is rooted, dead. So therefore, he wanted both. How can we do this? Of course, I'm saying it's an effort, doesn't mean it's a success. Absolutely not. I mean, even with the architects, it was very tough discussion. The Sun, they want to bring this pseudo-Arabic architecture with a lot of pastiche and cliché that I don't believe in it. And I believe more in the human-centered experience of spaces. But it's like for instance, this is a big mistake. You see that? This is done under the point of culture. But this is like very Romanistic thing, So therefore, this is why I think architects, like the discussion of history, they need to be very careful because they are into geometry, but they don't know about the human sense. So the last one, I think the revitalization of heritage in Tunis. Quick, the message in this project is very quick. This is a French colonial heritage in Tunis. There is the Medina of Tunis. The French, they came, they wanted to rival this Medina. They put this Champs-Élysées, main boulevard, with colonial facade and stuff. So this is the Medina of Tunis, okay? And look what will happen here. What will happen here, that means the French, they came, okay? They left the Medina, and then they created what a European urban grid with the main boulevard here was named actually Champs-Élysées, right? In the French way. And this is actually Champs-Élysées de Tunis, Avenue de la Marine, that means the original name. And of course, that thing, you see the grid and everything. So the question here, I spoke about Fez as an authentic conservation. I spoke about Doha reconstructing a lost memory. I spoke about Tabriz as a commercial hub, which is the more authentic one, and how to reconstruct a hub of commerce. And hence we're dealing with the conservation of one function, which is a bazaar. Here we have an extraneous heritage that came to your land, doesn't belong to you, someone brought it, under army or not, it's another discussion. What you do with it? You hate it and you say, wow, this is colonial, and you erase it. Did you solve the problem? No. While the city is a series of evolutions with S, you cannot just condemn one era, because even in the family there are bad and good news. So therefore you need to embrace your history. So the idea here is how this capital, cultural capital, even it's foreign, should be embraced to boost the cultural value of the whole city. And thanks to this project, Tunis became a hub of international conferences, became a hub of lots of tourists coming and having a wonderful experience. I will show you what they've done is amazing. I did not, I said, well, I mean in Morocco, like in my hometown, I feel sad because they would destroy French, buildings. This is colonial. Beautiful buildings, I just remember them now, they are not anymore, so they are not anymore there. But however, in Tunis, the policy was different. And by the way, this is some of the stupid projects they were rejected by people, okay, to do like Dubai in 1950, right? And they have even a project of hyper center of Tunis to create these monsters, but it was rejected. And then they believed what? In restoring, rehabilitating the existing, this is the theater, and of course with all the documentations, all the, what they've done, surveys, etc., by different architects here. I will just push, this is the result. The result, they took this boulevard that was like highway, they reduced cars, and they created this beautiful green belt. And then all the alleys, lateral one, they condemned the car and they said pedestrians. Our almost like 70,000 square meters of pedestrianized spaces about the hypercenter of Tunis. And of course, restoring all the monuments, they stop these kind of monsters, they stop that with regulations, and then look at the result. This is, for instance, a building, it's lost all its elements, and they really restated it. They took all the parasites, you know, the signage, colors, air conditioning and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, yeah? Yeah, because it's everywhere, even in Dhaka, you know, lots of metals and stuff, you know. And sometimes even if you make this enjoyable, you get intimidated with you getting it. It's better than the metal thing. Trust me, you know? And here, pedestrian stuff. This is the central market. The central market was demolished, really in a bad condition. Look what they've done with it. It became vibrant, vivid center. And summary of diagrams, this is how I put all the case studies. It said human factors, social and cultural, environment factor, economic and political. I will not indulge in details. The only conclusion I want to make here, please embrace your history. Don't clash with it. Without any ideology, I think it is a continuous line. In schools of architecture, if you're taught to innovate from abstraction, is good, because you need to be artists and fly, but never forget that you have feet that you stand on. Could you imagine I'm floating? Never. So I have David Leroy is telling me you can kill your grandfather, but you can kill your father. You know what I'm saying? That means the link with the past is there, and it should be there. So hence this question now of conservation that got out from the static conservation as an action to freeze heritage to an action to sustain human behavior, human experience, human memory, to enrich the contemporary city. And this is why now a lot of research is done internationally, how culture will be embraced again from the one that existed and the new one. I don't believe just in the past culture, but if a city is well planned, can have an augmented culture, a new culture. So culture reinvents itself. It cannot be static. Thank you very much. That's all I did want. If you have any questions. Oh, you have oh, I have panelists on just, you told me I'm
no problem. I was just listening to you. I have a meeting, so I need to go.
Ah, okay.
We can take some questions maybe.
Yes, please. I'm open. Yes, please.
So I've been to Doha, and Souk Waqif was definitely one of the most enjoyable place there. In fact, maybe only enjoyable place there.
Yes.
I didn't know that it is a new project. I mean, I thought it's a historical place.
Mm-hmm.
It is there ever since.
So it's good. It's good. No, I think the authentic part of it, less than 10-15%.
So all those buildings are new.
Reconstruction. Yes.
It's beautiful.
But I'm happy to hear your impression, and I know you're smart. Yes, I think it's. You know why? Because you're so focused on the human behavior on Souk Waqif rather than walls. Even actually, Souk Waqif, I can even say it's an overstated reconstruction. And even some of the ideas, they are not even local. Like for instance, when you look at the colonnades. Colonnades are not cut out. No, we know that. But you know, it's actually an attempt to recreate, regenerate a historic environment. This is why I like it. Yeah? It's not like Williamsburg in the US. I don't know if you visited Williamsburg. Williamsburg, you know, they created a historic town, and you're bringing people like actors in cinema to say local people with original dress, but they are all acting, and you're walking, you know, but suddenly someone gets the cell phone. It ruins the whole Please, questions.
So the project in Doha was shortlisted in Aga Khan Award, as you mentioned.
Was nominated,
Nominated.
actually made it almost like to the finals. But of course, I understand the worry of the jury, and I am, of course, it's hard to now to give an award to overstated and reconstructed image of heritage. Maybe in the future. Maybe, but not now. Not now.
What did they say about the project? They have,
No, they said, they didn't know how to categorize it. If it's conservation, absolutely it's not conservation. It's not even sometimes against the rules of restoration, if we look at really the rules of restoration. So if it's not conservation, what is it?
new kind.
Yeah. So, and then, but the new kind, do you want to promote it? Maybe others, they will use it in a wrong way. As you state, having all this, Nizar Sayyad, he has a beautiful book from Berkeley. He said fabricated heritage, So you have a lot of places they will fabricate. That's also another issue. Yeah? Please.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
When we think about complaints, then we think community-based work would be difficult. But you showed us the example of the bazaar.
Yes.
And it was 10,000 shops and the community was engaged.
Yes.
So would you mind to share how the process was actually followed, because it was a big community?
Yes.
And how they actually got engaged, the process?
Yes. This is a very good question. I will tell you why. Because we think that these people in these historic areas, they are not organized. The bazaarists in the Bazaar of Tabriz is one of the most ancient guilds. You know the guild, G-U-I-L-D, guilds of crafts. They are the most sophisticated in terms of organization. So therefore, they have a tradition of community-based leadership, all right, for centuries. So therefore, they have the power from, the guild of merchants, and then they work together. And of course, Miras, which is the national organization of caring about, heritage in Persia, or in Iran, they helped them technically. There was a technical assistance. And the whole story started by the trustees of the guild meeting with Miras, and they decided to do some pilot projects for all merchants to see the potential of revitalization. So this is what they've done. They executed some pilot projects, and then they invited all merchants, the trustees of the guild, and they believed, oh, my shop will become like that. That's good. So you see, step by step, they started, and then they engaged financially. 95% of the financing was from the organization, and that's quite amazing. So I hope I answered your question. Yeah. Please.
Thank you for such an insightful presentation.
Thank you.
I would like to ask that in case of conservation, we can take two approaches, like blending with what was there and doing something in contrast, so that in case there are any retrofitting needed for the building, so it can be evident that it is done in this century, but doesn't blend with other one. Which approach do you think is the better one? Or which approach does represent the culture more appropriately?
I was in that situation. Trust me, I was in it. It was in front of me. So I will leave this part authentic, and they need to prove that this one is new. How I will do it? Or there are so many changes in the buildings, and with changes in which century they are more important than another century. Because we think that the building is fixed. It's not. It was organic. It was expanded, reconstructed, restored in different periods. My answer, we cannot be risking, right, the sacredness of the fragment. Forget about it. Because since the building was under so many changes, So that means craftsmanship is still living. And they can fix it anytime. The problem is when you decide not to fix it because it's sacred, then it will go to oblivion. Alright? And whatever you do to distinguish this is new and this is old, the new one day will become old and the old will become old. Even in Fez, if you go to the Caravanserai of Najarin, we did what you're talking about. You know, we had pieces of wood, you know, still fresh, new, and we keep the old black, you know, dark. If you go now, with rain and, you know, changes and stuff, it's really hard to distinguish between the two. And based on the surveys, on the plaster, you know, cluster, lattice work, and the mosaic, there is always interventions. Madrasa Masbahiyya, 14th century. You know, there is a part in a wall that was restored 3 times. But the bare eye cannot see it. But from our laboratories, we realize from the tiles, they are coming from different sources. Right? However, I agree with you when there is a structural change. And this is why the actions definition is very important. Are we talking about restoration, rehabilitation, renewal, renovation, or consolidation? You need just to keep it hanging. You can do nothing with it. You freeze it. There is places where you need to freeze that fragment. It's so archaeological, so precious that you cannot. You need to keep it as a memory because it's a sample. In comes to restoration, yes, you need to distinguish, and even sometimes you can make that with some techniques, you know, just to show the new from the old. If it's highly archaeological, hence, according to the definition of the value of the building, where the action is defined. And the only thing, how you define the value should be very, very diverse. Like for instance, social value, house of a notable person, the judge. Archaeological value, very important. There is some elements unique. You don't find them elsewhere, or witness in a period, or etc. There is also structural value, like the Tabriz of Bazaar. There are some structural systems done with bricks. They are only in the Bazaar of Tabriz. So there is technicity, the know-how in terms of the masonry. It can be a value. There is another value which is urban value, the importance of the building or importance in its environment, you know, the immediate environment. And when you look at all these elements, in addition to the time, for instance, if you say 1000 BC is 1000 BC, all right? If you say 9th century is not like 19th century. So that value of authenticity and how deep you're going in the past, what makes you judge which action and how to distinguish such a thing to be unique and to be judged as unique. However, it's very tricky. This question is very tricky. What we've done in Fez, actually, we just discarded this Ruskinian sacredness of the fragment, and we said still we have craftsmen, we can do the job, but sometimes when there are some valuable archaeological elements, because we had archaeologists, please, that element should not be touched, remain as it is. So then you resort to techniques of what? Covering the material with a transparent stuff, not like before they were doing shelter, it was too ugly, but there are very, very sophisticated now substances like Nabix and Bifix. We have that you fix, you know, the thing, but it should remain as it is. So, you know, and to be honest with you, there is no faithful restoration. Really. Even sometimes you need to be very careful with archaeological sites. I have a cousin, if you know him, Ala Habashi. He did his PhD on the old Cairo, and what he discovered was shocking. The French, when they came to Cairo, they were stealing fragments from different parts of the city to reconstruct a monument. And why I go to Egypt, just in Morocco, you go to Volubilis, Roman site. They were taking fragments from different parts of the city and they reconstructed the Arc of Triomphe, Arch of Triumph Arch. When you look at it, just assembled fragments, heterogeneous, to make the impression to have that. So therefore, restoration, if you don't have like really experts without agendas and be just authentic in what they are doing, you can have a lot of wrong signals. I hope I answered your question. No, I did not answer. Yeah, I know. Yes.
So there's so many senseless war going on in that region and destruction of many of these like priceless historic monuments. Do you how do you see it? Is there any possibility that we'll get these things restored or get some of it back? For example, in Syria and also Afghanistan and Iraq especially.
It's hard.
Maybe we need to take like a massive project of bringing some of this back.
This is very good actually question, because I was involved in a workshop, the reconstruction after war. And there is a brilliant scholar from Jordan, Sultan Barakat, in York University, who has a special program only on that, reconstruction after war. I think it's a big loss for humanity. You cannot retrieve history. It's just like a precious fabric. When you cut it, it's gone. This is why we have a saying in Morocco, saying think twice before you cut. And you cannot, this is actually again fabricating heritage. And when they will reconstruct heritage, they will reconstruct it with their fiction, not with your fiction. Okay? So the damage done to Iraq's heritage, for me, irretrievable, impossible. Or
it's like the invention of shoes, to answer his
yes,
to share his thoughts. The invention of shoes, people that they wanted to not getting the dirt in the feet, so they wanted to cover the whole ground with leather instead. Then they come with smart ways to put a pair of shoes around their feet. So this sort of destruction of heritage cities, countries, nations. I think if one can instill the quality of these ancient places, our timeless continuum cities and all, to those who are in power to destroy or construct all this, the Western mind has to brought into the idea of heritage in a more living way.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it would be utterly because those who are, places like Syria and Iraq, it just was a button push.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
They didn't really understand what the button was doing.
Indeed.
So, and in many ways, modern knowledge is like the button.
Yeah, exactly.
We gain all the knowledge and we push that button knowledge without knowing. We take out the age-old cities or heritage or for that matter, the sign of humanity.
And more than that, I would add one thing.
Yeah.
And also they erase your sense of pride.
Right. I was just going to say, one of the trigger points to attempt to resurrect the idea of beauty within this living heritage is to aspire people to embrace their pride, who they are and where they came from. Those little sketches you showed on almost like postcard, it's all, I think it's very direct way to connect, and may that be very simple watercolor sketches. And nowadays we don't sketch. The basic, if you come to the basic, if we talk about education or architect, we really do not sketch. With a lot of kids, they don't know what it takes to draw a circle because it's all through pushing buttons. So this connectivity between mind and body and to the landscape you're part of, it's sort of disjointed.
Yes.
You know, it's how one can reconstruct that. So again, I would come back to say, one has to become human before to become more than human. They just have to forget about whatever is around them, just to take a slow walk to a space or to a place, and so, resurrect the subconscious layer of
Yes.
those sketches that.
Yes, I mean, talking about sketches, even sometimes we curse in the French, but also some of the good practices of the French in North Africa. If you look what the French architects they did for heritage in Morocco is unbelievable. The most beautiful sketches of authentic places they were done by some talented French architects. If you look please at the portfolio of La Prade. I think no single Moroccan architect has even bothered himself or herself to walk around these beautiful Medinas to sketch them. Delacroix, the artist Delacroix, how he captured the scenery beyond architecture, the human movement, stuff. And this is why art, if it's explored, as you said, in the human sense, it can get to some real essential part of the different historic fabrics. So in addition, look what the colonial architecture in Morocco doesn't mean I am from Morocco, but please just look at some postcards. Unbelievable. How they captured the essence of the local vocabulary and reinterpreted that vocabulary in the modern facade. And Henri Prost was actually not anyone, very famous guy. Before Morocco, he worked in Turkey. He traveled. He was a Prix de Rome, so famous guy. He said, "Happy I am in Morocco because I have the Beaux-Arts in every street of Morocco." And he was talking about those craftsmen. For him, it just was like the Beaux-Arts in every street. And then he explored those artists in the street to reconstruct a new architecture which is neither European nor very local, but he created a new kind of architecture. And if you look at a postal office in Rabat, or the parliament even house now in Rabat, unbelievable. And this is why this kind of exchange between cultures, regardless how they came or we go. Because Morocco and Europe, there is no end of it. We were invading them, they invade us. So Portuguese get, and we get them. Then this kind of va-et-vient, getting, the Spanish get, and there's still two cities, they are still belonging to them, they are ours, But this kind of movement in the Mediterranean, that was created in the regions. There is actually an American scholar, he's an archaeologist, I forgot his name. He has this beautiful book called The Corrupting Sea. That means the Mediterranean Sea, there is not north and south. I will get to your territory, I'll get some knowledge. You get to my territory, I'll get some knowledge. So therefore, in terms of the human level, how to capture the essence of that thing through art. I think this is what the schools of architecture, but not of course the Beaux-Arts, the Beaux-Arts tradition that killed architecture, that became partie, that became concept, became a line. Okay, it should be very artist in the heart to capture, as you said, with hand. I remember my professor Keith Critchlow in London. He believed only in the pencil. He never had a pen. So why? Because he's always sketching. He speaks, is a language, is a vocabulary. If you don't sketch, if you don't draw, how can you become an architect? Far away, yes, indeed. Indeed. My students in the school where I was, and now the new school, or even the UAE when I was running the architecture department, I prohibited computers enter the third year. Don't touch the computer. All right? Don't touch it. It's so important. Now, even with augmented reality, 3D Max, Maya, impossible they can replace the genius, the human genius. Because where is the problem? That abstract simulation of a reality that dictates from you to think human. No computer can do that. You can feed smart data to computer to give you a form. And this is why they go to this digital. They call it digital design. We have a guy, actually, his name is digital design, And the digital design is just smart for its own. And this is actually a big question, but thank you for asking, because for young students here, I think please go back to expression. Because expression is beyond just writing text. Even literature, when you write, please do whatever you think you can use to, because writing at the beginning, before I'm doing my PhD, writing, they say anyone can write, but writing is a voice. Now I can read a text and they can hear the voice of the author. I can hear it, because it's you, it's your DNA. The drawing is your DNA. This is why we have all the projects that look similar, because they are getting out of this stupid machine. Especially when they get me the pavage of a floor and they put it in a wall. You see that? They have this window here, and they have the same bathroom, the same windows, the same stuff, and they don't understand. And also the other thing, the link with material. All schools of architecture, they lost in touching the material, how tactile they are, what texture, what the materials, is it fitting for structure or for ornamentation, what the link between ornamentation in terms of materials and stuff. So that's.
So do you think this snowball of knowledge, is it really big now, and is it really close to the ground? It's gonna hit the ground and crash, or because most of the academia are far and more pushing toward this futuristic way of looking at architecture, and I think the young minds. The thing, if the building is not tall, it's not architecture in some ways. The cities and became a hub of architectural thinking. But I think it's everything that we saw. Scale is so important to understand the quality of space.
But not to be pessimistic for young people. I think now the augmented reality and the advanced simulation is getting back to the authentic. How? Before the computer was replacing drawing. Remember AutoCAD architecture was used just to support to draw. But with now moving to virtual reality, it has its pros, it has its positive sides. Now, what is important? The capacity of the architect's mind to embrace all the information based on a very strong knowledge to get to the right simulation for the computer to regenerate or to invent that reality, but with a very authentic knowledge. And that is what is missing. Now, we should not deny that simulation and computer, they can generate and they can embrace a lot of information, like BIM now. BIM is unbelievable. If you have a project of a stadium, all right, and you want to put electricity, whatever thing, you should not do a mistake. If not, you will lose $1 million in one action of destroying one lint or whatever. You see, so this also this question of moving from conception to implementation, avoiding mistakes, and looking how your project will be at the feasible side. This is also a good thing. I think it's a good thing. The only thing, I think, part of the education of the person where we have a psychological maturity that should happen 3 years, but should continue. The problem, it does not continue, especially with someone who specializes in computer. Now I can see some of my students, they are working on big firms. What they do, just handle 3D models. This is his job. That's the problem. The architect cannot be diminished to community. Remember, and even the architects are changed. I remember, Jan Para. In comparison with the architects before. Architects very knowledgeable. They were reading, drawing, sketches books, so maybe we can just not, draw, and it's not sign of being, I'm not saying to not treat much faster, but that's also some of the as well. I'm just saying, in our construction. Beautiful Arabic verb. Al-bina is you construct a system. And this is why very smart when they write. Yes, they write. Yes, because we have this image. And when we write, so sharp. Because we can describe, right? And they will end how craftsmen he was describing human body. And this is for beautiful proverb, which is what he said. He said they were talking about not as a building, as a human. He said, غطيني راسي وغرقني ساسي خليني أزمان cover my head, deepen my foundation, and leave me suffer me time. See? Yeah. That means the building needs to have strong foundation, strong roots, and then what? Just sustain time. I will end here. Thank you so much.